Hello, and welcome back to Introduction to Digital Political Campaigning. This week, week two, we're going to be discussing the 2016 presidential election with a special analysis and review on digital and data analytics and how it played out and affected the campaign, and how both sides used digital campaigning as well as big data. Okay, the 2016 cycle was the most expensive, longest, and raucous campaigns in history, and it wound up being one of the biggest upsets in presidential election history. Up there with Harry Truman defeating Thomas Dewey in '48 with the famous headline, "Dewey wins," and Truman holding up the newspaper headline. According to The Economist, this digital campaign was one in which a battleship, Clinton, lost to a chaotic flotilla of social media speedboats. That said, let's take a look at the money raised and the total cost of the election and what was spent. The Clinton campaign raised $1.19 billion and spent $1.18 billion. The Trump campaign, conversely, the speedboats, social media speedboats, they raised a little over half and spent a little over half of what the Clinton campaign raised and spent, and went on to win. So here's a breakdown of what was raised and spent. Okay, there were several key takeaways from the election that I'd like to go over, and that is big data is only going to get bigger. Polling is not big data. Messaging is still critical to success, and swing states still can determine who wins a close election. Okay, big data is only going to get bigger. The term big data refers to the use of predictive analytics and behavior analytics, and includes things like data storage, data analysis, search, sharing, transfer, visualization, querying, updating, and information privacy. We're going to get much more into big data and data analytics in the week and the module devoted to that. But as for now, this overview, big data really was a huge part of the campaign, and it's only going to get bigger. Back in the '08 and '12 elections, President Obama used big data to great effect, and it was picked up by the Clinton campaign in 2016. Initially, the Trump campaign saw big data as and digital campaigning as being overrated. Trump said, well, I'm going to win on the force of my personality. Well, he has a huge personality and a very forceful personality, but quickly saw the light and used the Republican Party's voter database, and also hired the 100-person data operation in San Antonio that we're going to talk a little bit more about in a few slides ahead. And they in turn brought in Cambridge Analytica, a British data company, and the data analytics and the digital approach really was the determining factor in the race for Trump. Polling, another key takeaway. Polling is not big data. Polls are only a snapshot in time. They're only as good as when they're taken, that point in time. Things can change, and things in 2016 did change rapidly. Almost every poll got it wrong, predicted a Clinton victory. Even Nate Silver of the 538 fame, who correctly predicted everything in 2012, got this race wrong. So to quote a book, what happened? While polling collects information from a variety of sources, it is just, as I said, a snapshot in time, and opinions can change. So the result is that polling often is outdated as quickly as it's released. So as to the undecided, everything broke at Trump's way with the undecideds, especially in these key 4 states we're going to talk about a little more too. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Wisconsin. These are 4 states that President Obama won handily in 08 and 12, and they broke in Trump's favor in 2016. Again, polling is not big data. It's not predictive. Thirdly, messaging is still critical to success. The Clinton and Trump campaign had different messaging, obviously, and the Advertising Age reported that Clinton spent a lot of time attacking Trump's temperament and fitness for office, and at the end, approaching Election Day, this message, these attacks seem to have little impact. And Clinton's message was also noted as being varied as depending on who she was addressing. For example, a certain message for immigrant community, working mothers, disabled, ethnic groups. And sometimes her message even ran counter to what would really help her, especially in the blue wall that we talked about, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, where she was in favor of certain trade agreements that really ran counter to the voters and the workers in those states. So here are a couple examples of Clinton messages. And now the first one is a CNN piece, which includes a ad to the immigrant community, but also they're addressing the fact that Clinton's message isn't clear and there's some issues with her messaging. The second is a Facebook ad where Mrs. Clinton is doing a direct message to Democrats. But I wanted to show this because within this piece, this 3-minute piece, this address, she hits all of the subsets and factions and coalitions within the Democratic Party. This was the time I think she was trying to pull everybody together after defeating Bernie Sanders. Okay, in a Gallup poll after the election, it was noted that Trump had fewer but simpler and perhaps more effective messages than Mrs. Clinton, where he focused on issues such as immigration, trade, national security, and the rig system drained the swamp. And these ads resonated with frustrated, angry voters. The Gallup report also noted that the one constant theme, Make America Great, was key to his messaging, and it harkened back to the Reagan era, It's Morning in America ad. So here's an example of a Make America Great Again Facebook ad, and it hits the bells and whistles mentioned above, the immigration, trade, national security, economy, etc. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, all of these ads and links that are here and in previous slides, they're all on the page 2 home page. So you can go back and click on the links there. And also you can access them through the lecture PDF. Okay, lastly, on the key takeaways, swing states can determine who wins a close election. Targeting battleground states has been a mainstay since 1992. However, the Clinton administration really dropped the ball here. They should have spent more time in the key swing states and you see the map here right across the top in red, PA, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Trump won by capturing these states that have been solidly Democratic for the past few election cycles. And they had a PA, Wisconsin, Michigan have a total of 46 electoral votes, just what Trump needed to put him over the top. But in these 3 states, the margin of victory was approximately 78,000 votes. So he really won the presidency based on 78,000 votes in these 3 key states. So there's a map, and here's at the bottom is a breakout of how you get to 78,000 votes total. 44 and change in PA, 44,000 and change PA. Wisconsin, almost 23,000, and 10,000 in Michigan. So the point being here is, in close elections, swing states really matter. And now bringing it maybe a little closer to home for our purposes, it could be key precincts or key counties in the races that you're involved with. Okay, now I'd like to shift to the lessons learned from or shared by Hillary Clinton's digital staff in the 2016 campaign. And first is the peril of super targeted advertising. You can get too targeted. The point here is, yes, advertising should be targeted, but not to the point where it's over targeted and you're missing the message and missing the key audience. Don't get too tight with your targeting. Sometimes brand hijacking is good. If you're not familiar with brand hijacking, here's a definition for you. Brand hijacking is an activity whereby someone acquires or otherwise assumes the online identity of another entity for the purpose of acquiring that person's business or brand equity. Now, usually in business, this is pejorative. This is a bad thing. You don't want to have someone brand jack your brand. However, the Clinton digital campaign said, in campaigning and politics, it's not always bad. Their quote is saying, "We want people to feel like they're part of the campaign. If that's what they want to do, to feel part of it by creating a website, please do it." So here I provide a simple example of brand jacking. This is a Facebook page that's linked to the Clinton website and Clinton Facebook page called I Love Hillary Clinton. Okay. Thirdly, according to the Clinton digital campaign staff, ad bombardments don't always work. This is kind of the converse of the being too super targeted. If you have X amount of money, X amount of time, don't worry about bombardment. You need to get focused on get the best bang for your buck, as they say. Fourthly, they found throwback photos are very popular and double as ads. This ad, you can access it on the Adweek article on the reading section of the module, week 2 module page. It's quite good, so check it out. Fifthly, the social game doesn't always have an agenda. This is a key point too. Be flexible. You can have the best agenda, the best schedule for the day, but sometimes things go viral, and in social media, conversations take off in a different direction. But if it's good, then go with it. Okay, now let's shift to, that was the Clinton campaign. Let's shift to the digital strategy of the Trump campaign that really made history and really put him into the Oval Office. Quote, "Facebook and Twitter were the reason we won this thing." Brad Parscale, Trump campaign digital operation head. I mentioned the San Antonio operation earlier, and he was the head of that. So how did Trump, who when he announced was considered laughable and very improbable of ever getting the nominations, how did he get the 306 electoral votes to capture an election that really was considered Clinton's to win? Well, he won by employing an incredibly powerful, innovative digital strategy that we have yet to see. And this Brad Parscale was the influential part of that. And the Trump campaign took everybody by surprise. The campaign spent $70 million a month on digital operations, and much of it to cultivate the universe of Trump supporters, but also, this is important, to suppress Clinton supporters. Led by Parscale, the Trump digital campaign was composed of 100 staffers, and as I mentioned, they were in San Antonio. It was a mix of programmers, network engineers, data scientists, and they put together a devastatingly effective strategy of reaching voters and communicating with voters and getting voters out and suppressing the Clinton supporters. And they did this based on 3 elements, and all 3 of these elements we're going to get into in more detail in subsequent modules and weeks. But big data analytics, the Ocean model of behavioral science, that was brought to them by the Cambridge Analytica. a group from England. We're going to get more into that, which has to do with behavioral science and psychographics, and also then ad targeting. So once they had the data and the psychographics, they were able to target the ads mostly on Facebook to reach the key audiences and voters. Here are links to two interviews of Parscale, one 60 Minutes, one on a Fox show. So check that out. And also, as I mentioned, the links of these and the other ads and messages are on the week 2 page. Okay, then, like I said, they were armed with this vast big data, and they were able to take the psychographics and then work with Facebook with their analytical tools and come up with ads that came up with the specific messages to influence undecided voters. And here again, undecided voters were critical. They almost all broke Trump's way in this election cycle. So over the course of the election cycle, this Parscale team put together this is an astounding number, 100,000 distinct pieces of creative content, and most of it on Facebook and online buys. Here is an example of an ad called Change, a Trump Facebook ad that they put together. Quite effective. So in the final months of the campaign, this is key too. The Clinton campaign predominantly focused on TV, whereas the Trump campaign focused its efforts on online buys and mostly Facebook. So what's key here is what's interesting here. It is old media versus new media, old school versus new school. The Clinton campaign predominantly focused on TV ads, the old way of communicating, and but still effective. Don't get me wrong, but the older established way of advertising. The Trump campaign, their focus is almost entirely, and I might add, much cheaper to focus on these online buys. So this is all key stuff for going forward and doing effective digital campaigning. So just to sum it up, the Trump campaign, they bet on micro-targeted Facebook ads, and it worked. They got the folks out in key states and were able to suppress turnout in Democratic turnout in key states, as we mentioned, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So in several key battleground states, the Trump campaign's focus on data analytics and voter targeting. It allowed them to determine which messages work best and carry the states that President Obama had won handily just 4 years prior, and it helped Trump win the Electoral College and become the 45th president of the United States. So that's week 2. I look at an overview of the 2016 campaign with this special focus on digital and digital approach and data analytics. So we will see you next time, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.